Where do people get their news?
Bowman, who was seen pulling some sort of fire alarm.
The policy eliminates the existing cash bail system.
Los Angeles County completely eliminates cash bail. Joe Biden complains about misinformation. Was there another insurrection in the Capitol over the weekend? And California's racist senator pick. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker that is completely and totally and utterly cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Monday, October 2nd, the year of our Lord 2023. Too much happened over the weekend to be able to get to in the entirety of this show, so we're going to have to roll this into tomorrow, which it helps me out quite a bit because tomorrow is just going to be chaos for me. Yeah, DeSantis was on Bill Maher. We're not going to be able to get to that. AOC was on Face the Nation, the CNN talk show. Anyways, a bunch of stuff happened that we're not going to be able to get to, but we will get to some of the more important stuff that I think is at the top of everyone's mind today. There was yet another insurrection over the weekend. Not an insurrection by protesters protesting climate change, not an insurrection by protesters protesting the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh, but this insurrection took place from a sitting U.S. congressman. What is an insurrection, you might ask? Well, apparently obstruction of any sort of government proceeding counts as a quote-unquote insurrection. That term has been used in that way. I don't know if that's the actual definition, but the definition that the media has been going with and the entire country has been going with is if you halt any proceeding of the government in any way, shape, or form that isn't parliamentary or part of Robert's rules or anything like that, then it's an insurrection. Well, if that's the case, and that's the standard that we're holding everybody to, another insurrection happened over the weekend when Jamal Bowman, D, New York, pulled a fire alarm to try and delay the continuation resolution for the government to avoid a shutdown. That whole news is I don't care about it, honestly. I can't get myself to care about the quote-unquote government shutdown. But they avoided it by a couple days. They'll extend it. They're going to haggle over it for the rest of the week. Matt Gaetz might try to boot Kevin McCarthy out. It's just government being government. They're playing their own sport that I think a lot of Americans don't actually care about, but that's its whole thing on the other side. But as a part of the process of that, there needed to be a vote, and that vote, I think, took place on Saturday. But unfortunately, the vote was delayed when when Congress people thought an emergency was upon them because the fire alarm went off. The fire alarm is only pulled in case of emergency, in which case it obstructed the proceedings of the government. Come to find out that it was a congressman, D, New York, Jamal Bowman, who decided to pull the fire alarm specifically to slow down the process, resulting in the obstruction of the proceedings, which is, by definition, at least the media's definition, an insurrection. Whether or not it was violent remains to be seen. But I thought this was a fascinating story over the weekend because, first things first, he pretty clearly pulled the fire alarm. One, I think there was some denials, like, well, we don't know it was him. And then there's a photo of him, and you can find the photo. I thought this meme was funnier than the actual photo, but you can find the photo online. It's not hard to find. It's pretty much everywhere, of him pulling the fire alarm. And then, after getting caught with the photo, he says, well, I thought it would open the door. I don't know if you buy that, but apparently MSNBC thinks their viewers are going to buy it. I want you to watch this clip from MSNBC over the weekend in which they talk about, well, yeah, he was trying to get out of the building and he kind of thought, oh, the fire alarm is the way that you get out. Watch this covering for one of their own on MSNBC. Check it out.
Last thing I want to mention, and then we're going to take a quick break. There was a mention of Jamal Bowman, Congressman Jamal Bowman, and the pulling of some sort of fire alarm. And I just want to read for you some of the reporting so you understand what actually went on there. There were some reports that began to emerge about Representative Bowman, who was seen pulling some sort of fire alarm in a Cannon House office building earlier today. We got a statement on that. Saying Congressman Bowman did not realize he would trigger a building alarm as he was rushing to make an urgent vote. The congressman regrets any confusion, just to clarify some things on that, because I know there was likely some folks kind of scratching their heads wondering what it was they were asking Speaker McCarthy about.
Yeah. Nobody should believe that. And I think that should shed some light on the whole idea of Washington politics as a whole. This guy so I'm going to show you another clip, not from this weekend, but I think a lot of people are focusing on the vote and all this sort of stuff. No. I would like to show you who Jamal Bowman actually is as a person. He is an unhinged, crazy person. And I say that with all due respect to the congressman in his office, but this is not a believable alibi of, I thought it would open the door. First of all, I don't know if you're familiar with modern society and the buildings that we've constructed, but in no place ever does a fire alarm on the wall look like something that would open the door. And if that is truly what he thinks and believes, and not just a lie and spin to try and get him out of trouble, because obstructing a proceeding like that carries up to 6 months in jail. So there's that whole thing. But if he actually believes that, I think we have a new problem. That surpasses the Joe Biden, the John Fetterman, the Dianne Feinstein benchmark of, well, they didn't even know where they are. If he believes that pulling fire alarms opens doors, I think we might have a bigger problem on our hands. He may, in fact, be too dumb to participate in Congress. I know there's no IQ limit, but like I said, I know some people with some pretty sad, debilitating mental handicaps, and I feel for them. And also, even they know not to pull fire alarms. So if he actually believes that, there's a bigger problem at hand. But of course he doesn't. He is, again, an unhinged, crazy person. He is one of those types of Democrats who is a tear it down type of person. He wants the entire system to fail so that him and his colleagues can rebuild it, which of course is a dumb way to look at the world. But just so you know what kind of a person he is, here is him and Congressman Thomas Massie. Now, obviously, they don't agree on things. And even though a lot of Congress people don't agree on things, they don't scream at each other in the foyer. Unless you're Jamal Bowman, who, again, is an unhinged, crazy person. Watch this totally sane, definitely believable, even-tempered individual just interact with one of his colleagues. Is this a type of person who would pull a fire alarm, or is it a type of person who would lie about pulling a fire alarm? Check it out.
Allows teachers to carry.
Carry guns?
Would you
More guns lead
co-sponsor?
to more death.
Would you co-sponsor?
More
that bill?
guns lead to more death.
Would you co-sponsor?
Look at
that
the
bill?
data. You're not looking at any data.
The
You're
data.
carrying
data.
the water for the gun lobby.
No.
Look
listen.
at the data.
I'm
More
carrying
guns
for
lead
the
to more
kids.
deaths.
For the kids.
Guys, states that have open carry laws have more death.
In every school that
States
allows
that
carry,
have open
there's
carry
never been a
laws
shooting.
have more death.
There's never been a shooting.
Are you listening to what I'm saying?
Yeah, calm down.
Calm down. Children are dying.
I know, I've got a
9-year-old
solution.
children.
I've got a
The solution is not arming teachers.
That's
Have you ever
worked
worked
in
in a
every
school?
school. In
Have
every
you
school
ever
that's
worked in
not
a
in
school?
Now-
In every
Have you ever worked in a school?
This is from a couple months ago. I know that, but just so you know, that's the same guy who claims, "Oh, I didn't know it was a fire alarm. I thought it was a door." Willing to act like that in public, and a guy who clearly is. So the argument is over gun control, and I think a lot of people on the internet were saying, "Well, he's just passionate." When this video came out, no, he's a crazy person. Because policy is policy, And if you want to discuss policy and come to some sort of compromise that'll actually get passed into law, you don't act like that. Somebody who acts like that is the same kind of person who would pull a fire alarm to stop a proceeding. A couple of people in the comment section here, Renee saying, didn't it say fire alarm? Yes. So this is another thing. I haven't seen a picture of the actual fire alarm to me. And a lot of people would say, well, if you haven't seen the picture of the fire alarm, then you don't know what you're talking about. No, because if the fire alarm looked like a door opening thing, the lefty media, which I take in a lot of, would have had that plastered everywhere for the last 2 days, right? If it were easily mistakable, lefties around the Twitterverse, around Congress, around the media would all have pointed that out already, but they haven't. So I don't need to see the fire alarm to say, yeah, clearly it probably looked like every other freaking fire alarm that anybody has ever seen, ever. Another comment here, Terry says, he needs to be jailed for an insurrection. That's what I'm saying. This, in my opinion, according to the media, was an insurrection. Pam, I don't know, it just came up in my feed. Were his pants on fire? I don't think so, Pam. I don't think his pants were, in fact, ablaze. But good question. Bottom line is, will anything happen to him? My guess is no, unfortunately, but one can hope. And I wouldn't say just a censure. Don't stop at censure. Go ahead and look, there are people, and I'm not defending, I think January 6th was bad. I feel like I have to say that. Of course it was bad. But at the same time, there are people who got jail time for obstructing the proceedings of the country and kind of were just milling around the Capitol, weren't really doing anything in particular. This guy took an active participatory action to do the exact thing that people are in jail for now. So how is this not an insurrection? And again, nobody buys this. Oh, I thought it would open a door. Anyways. Let's see. Moving on. All right, here we go. Let's go to this. Joe Biden was on some ProPublica thing, big media outlet. Joe Biden does all the big media outlets because he wants to stay on top of all of the things that the media is saying about him, except for none of that is true. And he goes to ProPublica to do an interview. But ProPublica asked him about Elon Musk's Twitter acquisition. And Elon took offense to what Joe Biden said. He tweeted out this particular video, which I thought was freaking fascinating. We are in a post-truth world. And if you don't know what post-truth world is, what it means is effectively you listen to the side that you know you're already going to agree with to reinforce your current beliefs, as opposed to things that are actually true. Joe Biden knows that, or he at least thinks that the American people just are going to believe him because they're Democrats and they like him being the president. Watch what he says on this interview, and then we'll discuss the beef now that the president has with the richest man in the world. Check it out.
What about what Elon Musk has done to Twitter, lowering guardrails against misinformation? Does that contribute to it?
Yeah, it does. Look, one of the things, as I said to you, when I thought I wasn't going to run, I was going to write a book about the changes taking place. And most of it's directed over the years with these fundamental changes in society by changing technology. Mm-hmm. Gutenberg printing in the printing press changed the way Europeans could talk to one another, all the way to today. Where do people get their news? They go on the internet. They go online. And you have no notion whether it's true or not.
You stupid people have no idea if what you're looking at on the internet is true or not, said the President of the United States. Kind of like, I don't know, the laptop situation that could have swayed the election in the opposite direction for the presidency in 2020. Maybe like all of the COVID misinformation that was pushed by the federal government. Look, just the overall scope here. The bottom line is that there has to be, considering the technology that we have now, there has to be a tumultuous period in which the society and the culture wrestle with how they believe things that they see. He's talking about, he brought up, well, the printing press. None of that matters. What needs to happen now is that people need to understand, and they do, that most things that they see have to be validated in some way, shape, or form. And what needs to happen is that culture as a whole needs to move to a place of skepticism, unless, of course, somebody with a reputable voice or a reputable brand, dare I say, puts things out that it's hard to refute. In other words, if you want people to believe you in the modern culture, you have to be compelling. And you have to allow those people to look elsewhere and then hopefully track their way back to your point of view. What I'm saying is, I agree, this is a difficult time in the world of information. But the solution to that difficult time is to struggle through it and not have government guardrails that try to entirely corner, quote unquote, the truth. Because when that happens, then you get terrible things happening from a government standpoint. We don't need to go into the history of that, since Joe Biden wanted to talk about the history of technology. At the end of the day, we all collectively have to come to the understanding that information is not always true. Correct. But the best way to get through this kind of weird phase that we're in, kind of being more or less on the front end of the internet history, in order to get through all that, we're going to have to reset the way we look at information and the way we take in information. And that does not include the government telling you what information is good and what information is bad. That's the last possible thing. That's the last, the last thing you want in a society is the government being the sole arbiter of truth. But nevertheless, Joe Biden is complaining about that. I want to get to this because I thought this was interesting, and then we'll talk about this cash bail thing. This racist California Senate pick. So this is actually faster. Last night when this hit, really weird that Gavin Newsom, not weird, sorry, he's trying to get news cycle attention. Puts it out at 10 p.m. Pacific in California so that when everybody on the East Coast media wakes up, it's the first thing in their headlines. Gavin Newsom appoints a new senator to replace Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein died Friday, and he had somebody picked to replace her by Sunday. That seems fast. I don't know. I guess, I don't know, but it seems fast, which, if the conspiracy in me were to pull on a little tug on the string here, wonder if Gavin, when's the last time anybody saw Dianne Feinstein? Because she was voting Thursday, I think, or Wednesday. Did anybody see her any of those 2 days? Or did she pass a while ago, giving Gavin a ton of time to pick the new replacement for her because he would have known, but was still voting? Is that a scandal? Maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody should look into that. Bottom line is, Gavin and the racist heart that he has in California decided to pick a new senator as of last night. One LaFonza Butler, who... I'm going to read the tweet because I think it is if you don't understand lefty racism, I feel like this should be a great example of it. Gavin tweeted, "I'm proud to announce California's new U.S. Senator LaFonza Butler has been more the enormous loss of yada, 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 yada. LaFonza has spent her entire career fighting for women and girls and advocating as fierce working people." That was the first sentence. The second sentence goes to the reason Gavin Newsom hired her, the racist reason, in my opinion, that Gavin Newsom hired her. "She will make history, becoming the first black lesbian to openly serve in the U.S. Senate." Because that's the qualification we all want. I guess I don't need to rehash this whole argument. But one, Gavin did announce that he was going to pick a black woman to be the U.S. Senator to replace Feinstein if he ever needed to. This was several weeks ago, and he stayed consistent with that. Obviously, if you don't understand the racism there, I, for one, could not be a senator from California because I am not black, nor am I a woman. Or am I? But of course, anybody who is not a black woman was disqualified, which means that people across the state of California, or across the country even, but we'll get to that in a second, people across the state of California were disqualified for a job due to their race and or gender, which again probably goes directly against the Civil Rights Act, but nobody's going to care about that because Gavin is a champion of whatever the heck he claims to be a champion of. So there's the racism on that side. Two, there's the racism for her particularly. I don't know who this person is at all. Could not pick her out of a lineup. I have no idea what she's done, who she is, what she stands for. But I'm going to question her qualifications simply because she's a diversity hire. If the left wants to make things more equal for everybody, you need to cool it with the diversity hires. You have to hire people strictly based on whether or not they can do the job, because if you don't hire them based on whether or not they can do the job, and we don't exist in a meritocracy, people are going to question, hey, Gavin, did you hire her because she would be a good senator for the state, or did you hire her to check a box? And if you hired her to check a box, doesn't that open her qualifications up to immense scrutiny from everyone? So not only is it racist to bar people from the possibility of attaining that job because of their race/gender, it's also racist to her because everybody, including me, am going to be questioning her qualifications through her entirety of her Senate career, which could be a year or could be 7 more years if she decides to run and then wins the Senate seat in California in November of next year. There are already several people running. Katie Porter was one of them. Adam Schiff's show is also another one running. But no, I don't take her seriously. I can't. Gavin has put me in a situation, the racist governor of California has put me in a situation where I can't trust this lady because she wasn't hired based on her merits, but instead based on her race, gender, and sexual orientation. What a terrible, terrible thing to do to minorities. One of the biggest, it's astonishing how lefties have gotten away with just flat out blatant racism and been able to pass it off as some virtue that they are able to help out the poor, dumb minorities who can't figure it out on their own. It is amazing to me. But yeah, missed the entire, the Chiron says, she doesn't live in California. That's a whole, look, get rid of the black lady lesbian thing. She lives in freaking Maryland. Now, has she worked in California for a long time? Yes. But in 2021, she took a job for some nonprofit, Emily's List. I'm not familiar with that. But took a job there and moved her family to Maryland. And then someday gets a call in 2023, years after not having lived in the state. Gavin Newsom, the governor, saying, hey, you want to be a senator? And she's like, what? Maryland already has 2 senators. And he said, no, from California. Oh, okay, but I'm in she's not registered to vote here. She's not a registered California resident. She owns land here, I guess, but if owning land is the qualification for being a senator, find me the next dead GOP senator and I will buy land in that state just so I could throw my hat in the ring to be a senator from that state. Maybe I also can be the diversity hire that lefties love so much. Because if that's the qualifications for being a senator of a state, the bar is way lower than I thought. So aside from the fact that Gavin racistly, I don't know, is that a word, racistly? Gavin hired someone through racist intentions. Despite all of that, she didn't even live in the state. What a wild time to be alive. Maybe I'll get to some of the comments here because we don't have a video to play, so difficult to read the comments and talk. But yeah, people talking, pointing out, Marcel just pointed out, just like KJP, correct. Also, just like Ketanji Brown Jackson. Remember, Joe Biden also violated the Civil Rights Act by disqualifying anybody who wasn't a black woman because he. Anyways, what a weird. How do lefties get away with calling anybody racist when in fact they're the most racist people in the country? Bob says this. Illegal aliens as senators to Ukraine. That's funny, Bob. Appreciate it. Anyways, Ken says, why are the Californians, why aren't they up in arms, their voice not being heard? Yeah, some of us are, Ken. I also live in California, in case you're new to the show and don't know that, but oops. Anyways, appreciate all you in the comments. Wow, geez, there's a ton. But I want to get to this before we hop off here, because I kind of want a strict timeline here. This will be fine. I'm going to play this clip. This is from California, also from California, the state where good ideas go to die. LA County has completely eliminated cash bail. I want you to watch this clip from the local news. It shouldn't take much explaining because it is as dumb as it sounds. Watch this.
A controversial new zero bail policy is now in effect in LA County. The policy eliminates the existing cash bail system for all but the most serious of crimes. Most people will either be cited and released or booked and released with orders to appear in court. On Friday, 11 local cities announced a lawsuit to block that policy. LAPD Chief Michael Moore says the new policy will make it harder for law enforcement.
This is between people being let out of prison, between the smash and grabs we see going on, just the level of lawlessness that we see. We just basically said, we're going to stand up and we're going to take a stand and we're going to say, no, this isn't right.
Supporters of zero bail say the new system will help ensure any pre-trial release will not depend on how much money that person has.
Yeah, in other words, there is no incentive for anybody to come back. Look, if you're a criminal and get arrested for a crime that you committed, to say that we are going to trust you to come back to court when we gave them a court order. Oh, you gave them a court order. Oh, well then that's so. Despite the fact that they already decided to break the law, which is why they were taken to jail and released on site. Despite that whole thing, yeah, I'm sure they'll be like, oh well, hold on, honey, I know I'm a criminal, but I do have to attend this court proceeding where I could be tried and put in jail for a very long time because it says so on this piece of paper. The whole point of bail is if you don't show up, you lose your house or your car or whatever it is that bail is set at. So, again, California, this is one of those things where I like, but I feel like I shouldn't be. So, I like it in the sense that I am a big fan of states being kind of like petri dishes of democracy. People think, well, what works and where does it work and how does it work and all that sort of stuff. So I appreciate California taking the stand and showing the rest of the country how stupid of an idea this would be. The problem is that I live here, and I wish that I didn't live in the most experimental, flammable petri dish. But the crimes are crazy. I think I'm working on a buddy of mine. I'm hopefully trying to get a list of different crimes that are going to be site releases now. But he said initially, like kidnapping. You can kidnap someone and they'll just basically write you a ticket and say, please show up to court in 18 months. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be fine, Los Angeles County. Good luck with that. Fortunately, I do not live in that county. But anyways, that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Just type in JOBOB. You'll be able to find me pretty much anywhere. Also, today I will be in San Jose, California, at San Jose State University with Charlie Kirk. Tomorrow I will be in Albany, New York with Candace Owens. We're going to try and get a show on tomorrow, but we're on a red eye and it's a whole... It's going to be a logistical issue to try and do this, but I think we're gonna make an attempt at least. But tonight in San Jose, tomorrow in Albany, New York with Candace Owens. Friday we are in Van Buren, Arkansas at the King Opera House. That's a comedy show, so that should be fun for the whole family. If you decide to, well, maybe not the whole family, maybe like adults, but. Anyways, we're in Van Buren, Arkansas on Friday and Tulsa, Oklahoma on Saturday. If you want tickets to any of those events, the 2 Turning Point events at the beginning of the week and then the 2 comedy events at the end of the week, you can find me on social media, send me a message, and somebody will get back to you. But appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, different place, probably, and a big probably on tomorrow, depending on flights and whether or not they get off the ground. See you tomorrow. Again, probably. Dang. Just used to saying that. God bless America.